everybody. Welcome back to DevDive Side Table. I am your host, Steve Fontana. Thank you very much for joining us. This is DevDive Side Table. It's a conversational podcast where we take a deep dive into the world of indie tabletop gaming development and uncover the stories behind the games that we love and maybe the games that you don't know about yet. But we're gonna get them on your shelf. Don't we worry. You are maybe not shelf, maybe pocket. Ooh, little thing to come. On this week's show, we have Galen McCown, lead game designer, owner, co-owner, third owner, assistant to himself, man of many hats of Galen's Game Designs. Welcome to the show, Galen. How are you?
Thanks so much. I'm doing well.
This is exciting because this your little games here that we're going to talk about in a minute here took me by surprise when I was at PAX Unplugged. I walked past this high top table. Table was about, I don't know, maybe 2 feet, like a 2 feet circle. And I saw these little dice and these little cards on the table. I said, oh, what do we have here? And I looked and I said, wow, this game is very weird. It's got all kinds of different mechanics here. What the heck is going on here? Oh no, it was 4 games in a 2x2 area. Really cool concept here for these game mint tins. So I kind of want to dive right into that. Can you tell everyone what's about your game tin mint? I forget exactly the order of what they're called, but
no worries.
These are tiny little micro games and they're awesome. And you have 4 of them. One being, I think one is newly being released. I forget. I apologize for
all 4 are being
all 4. Okay. So yeah, that was okay. Got it. The one that I was heavily featured in was the monster mashup one. And that's the one that drew me to your page, and I bought them. I bought them all because you can't not buy them all. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that. What is this series of games?
Sure. So it's Galen's Games Mint Tin series. I just ran a Kickstarter for it that wrapped up in November. So these are all Mint Tin size games. I actually don't have one of them, but I have somebody else's here. So
there you go. Yeah.
Imagine a little Altoids tin size game. It's I could say a lot about it. I think there's a lot of reasons I chose to do it. I love mint tin size games, both just from the kind of the design restrictions that breed creativity, but also they're just extremely portable. Kind of take them anywhere. I can keep them at a really low price point, all kind of great things. So it's a series of 4 games. The common thread is that each one of them you can learn in 5 minutes, play in 20 minutes, all 2-player games, all with solo modes, and kind of play them anywhere. Just really, really easy to get out, whether it's some of them would probably work on an airplane table. All of them will work at a bar or while you're waiting for your food or that kind of thing. So yeah, I got, there's the games are Dice Clash, Mint Tin, Monster Mashup, Heritage Farms, in Verdon, Arizona. So I'm the designer of 2 of them, and the other 2 I signed and did the development for, which was my first experience being kind of a capital P publisher as opposed to just a self-publisher. And it was neat.
Wow. So were you looking for other games to add to the series or was it something that just kind of like happened out of nowhere?
So a couple of things happened. It's my second official Kickstarter rodeo. So I started with a game called Super Snipers.
We'll get to that one. Don't you worry. That game's dope.
2022. And one of the things kind of coming out of that, I decided a couple different things I wanted to accomplish the second time around. Again, reasons why I went with mint tins. One was I really wanted to simplify everything around, manufacturing, freight, and shipping, right? And it's just, the margins go down, but the costs go down too. So
absolutely,
it just makes life easier. The other thing, with the idea of going with 4, there's kind of 2 sides to that. One is, where I'll find myself this summer when they deliver, which is after 2 Kickstarters, now I have 5 games to sell you instead of 2, so you're just building the catalog at a much faster rate. Additionally, just from the business side of things, advertising is a necessary evil for Kickstarters if you want to really do anything with them. And a $15 game, it's pretty much impossible to make advertising work, not make it work, but make it financially viable, right? Because what you're spending to get people to the page. So kind of had this concept of like, yeah, they're $15 a piece, but hey, you can get 2 for 24 or 4 for 40. And the vast majority of people that came in, maybe they came in for the, oh, look, a cute Min Tin game, and they left with all 4 because that was the best deal. So
yeah,
those are the reasons getting into. Yeah, I think your question was about, so where I started with that. So I had 2 designs. One was Heritage Farms, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about later, but it's a game, 2-player game based off of the old chicken, fox, and corn riddle, right? Where the farmer has the boat, it only has space for one at a time, and he's got a chicken and a fox and a corn. And if you leave the fox alone with the chicken, it'll eat it. You leave the chicken with the corn, it'll eat them. So I thought about that riddle, and I made it into a 2-player game where it's a competitive chicken, fox, and corn farming. That you're moving things across the river, and your farms are attached to my markets, and vice versa. And so I had that game sitting around for a while, and realized that I had accidentally made it an 18-card game, and then realized that it worked really well as a Min Tin. And then the other one I did is a co-design. It's called Dice Clash, and it's a dice placement game. You have these battle grids, you have warriors with unique abilities, and you have a pool of dice, and each turn you're placing a die onto one of these spaces, and it's going to modify what your die does in some ways. And it does this really neat kind of back and forth feeling. And that is a co-design because it's a re-implementation of another game called Scuttleball, by Jonathan Carnell and Ryan Sromek of Crossbow Games. Great designers. Highly recommend checking them out on the Game Crafter. And as I was making Dice Clash, I was doing a bunch of different things with dice placement. And every time I kept coming back to, these guys have already come up with a perfect solution for what I'm trying to do here. Their system is just better than anything I'm coming up with. So it's really, it's a re-implementation, but it's an expansion on that system. So I reached out to them and brought them on as co-designers. And also Jonathan did a lot of the art for the series too. So he did the art and graphic design for Heritage Farms and Verdant, Arizona.
Awesome.
And so those were the 2 I started with. And for the first time around, I just reached out to the communities I was already kind of a part of, the design groups that I work with, the designers I know. I didn't put out a big I'm taking submissions kind of thing, which I'm doing now, and I can talk about that later if you want. So I just kind of took pitches from friends, from people I knew in those groups, and ended up signing 2 games, Min Tin Monster Mashup from Chris Bakke, and then Verdant, Arizona from Robin David.
Awesome. Yeah, I the one thing you didn't touch on really is why these Mint Tins are so attractive to me, the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
These, and I had mentioned this at the top as kind of a silly little joke, but the Kallax shelving units, which I have behind me full of action figures and D&D books, but those are synonymous with game players and game collectors, that these shelves, they buy them 3-4 at a time and fill them up with these giant boxes. I got a Kickstarter game that, no joke, was about 3 feet. It was a 3-foot box or 2.5-foot box, and it was about 18 inches high. It was huge, massive box. The attractiveness of having this game that you could slide in your pocket, throw in your side pocket of a backpack, just so you have something to do with a friend or solo. That's like almost like I would say a godsend for collectors, but you also aren't sacrificing depth of gameplay, which was very impressive to me. Specifically, I kind of want to talk about Dice Clash a little bit more, because you make use of both sides of the cards in a way that is, for lack of a better term, game changing, right? Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think that's just a really cool mechanic that I'd love to hit on.
Absolutely. And honestly, it's when I teach these games, it's somewhat the calling card of Galen's games. It's in a lot of my games, at least the battlers, the head-to-head ones. So this was something from Super Snipers as well. So In the game, it's a very, very simple setup. Each player takes 2 cards. One is your character and one is your battle grid, and they just kind of sit symmetrically across from each other. You got your pool of dice, done. And what's happening with the cards is once somebody defeats somebody else, you're going to flip both those cards over. And a couple different things, right? When you're working with min-tins, you have to make use of everything, right? It's a very tight space. So having 2 sides to the card just makes sense. You can get more game in there. But in terms of gameplay wise, both sides are better. So the characters have an asymmetric power. On the back side, they have a better asymmetric power. And the grid, same thing. It introduces new abilities on the grid, which gives you a better chance, but it's also your last stand. When you lose on that side, you're done. Also, it's a reason to get more art in there. And I'm big on that. I love, the artist I work with is so fun. And again, this was something I did with Super Snipers 2, where this idea, the round after you get shot in that game, you gain a new ability. You flip over an adrenaline card and you just have this raging version of yourself with a better ability. And, it's not fate. You're not always going to win. Otherwise, that kind of ruins the balance of the game, but it gives you a little bit of a leg up. Because I don't know about you, when you, as a publisher, you're kind of trying to deliver a little bit the experience that you want. And for me, the memorable games are the close ones, whether I win or lose. It's the ones where I was like, oh, at least the head-to-head ones, right? Like where it's down to the wire, where you felt like you had a chance till the end. So that's really important to me.
It felt like mini Dice Throne to me. Like Dice Throne is like, to me, it's one of the more perfect designs in 1v. Well, actually, it's kind of, you could do battle royale too, but like those versus games, character driven, ability driven, stuff like that, dice placement, as it were. And it's one of my favorite games. I absolutely love it, and it hits on exactly what you were saying, where you could be ahead, you could knock down half of your opponent's HP, and then every time when you finish the game, it's always like one person has 3 HP left and the other one dies. And it's like, how did it get so close? It's all in the balancing. It's all in the tug of war and that push and pull. How do you achieve that kind of balance on just 2 sides of a card? Like, how did you achieve that?
The interesting question. I'll first say that it was challenging, because one of the things, I talked about kind of, Scuttleball, which, people probably aren't familiar with. A great game. I highly recommend it. It's a hermit crabs playing volleyball. And so, so just quickly, their system, was again, the same idea of, you roll a pool of dice and you're placing a die, and whatever you place on the grid, maybe it changes, the die face, or maybe it changes your defense, your offense, or whatever. But it had that feel of a back and forth volley. And that whole concept of like, if I'm attacking with 6 or higher, which obviously in that game is a huge spike, in Dice Clash it's a big attack, you can defend with a 1. You can always kind of like, so that circle was really important, that they figured that out. That piece was really nice. But part of the challenge, one of the things I did different from that game is, that's a symmetrical game. You're both playing on identical grids. Between 3 different versions of identical grids, but they're identical. In Dice Clash, they're completely asymmetrical, and the powers are asymmetrical too. So the balancing, the big answer is a lot of play testing. I'm actually not much of a spreadsheet guy. I'm a bit more of a feel, and then test to make sure my feel is correct. That said, there is some math to it. The idea of I guess I did spreadsheet a little bit. Each grid, so there's a number of modifications, and some are more powerful than others. Like, there's a flip a die, which is going to allow you to get to those, turn a 1 to a 6 or a 6 to a 1, both of which can be very powerful in the game. There's some that, bring your die up or down by a number. There's some that add defense or more defense. And so I did have kind of a sense, I assigned to each of those a value of how powerful it was in the game. So some things might be like, hey, this is power 1. This one's really good. It's 1.5. At the end, they all had to add up. If I remember correctly, it was 15, So there is some sort of method to the madness of kind of what's out there. The other piece is just, I like giving people, mitigation's huge with dice games, right? Like, and that's the beauty of Dice Throne too, right? You got your command points, you've got your card system. Yes, you can get lucky on your roll. Yes, you can hit your Yahtzee, but it's more often that you're smart about when you use those cards, right?
Right.
The way, the mitigation is done in this game, which is again an evolution, of what was happening with Scuttleball, is there's 3 different types of dice. There's, you have a pool of 9 dice, 6 black, 2 white, and 1 red. And so black dice just, attack and defense. That's all they do. And when you play a white die, similar to Under Falling Skies, you re-roll the rest of your pool. So there's you have some mitigation there. And when you play your red die, that's when you activate your character's one-time special power. So you have a lot of options. You're almost never, I've never seen people screwed within the first 2 plays. It typically gets pretty deep before you can't respond. And it can be about luck, but sometimes it's just about your own poor choices. You see what you could have done differently, right? So I hope that answers the question, but that's...
I do have another question though, because you how do you assign the powers? Like, how do you, well, the numerical value to the powers? Like, what goes into determining what makes something a 10 or a 5 or whatever?
It's been a minute since I did it. I'll do my best to answer. The obvious one, so an attack +1 versus an attack +2, that's clearly one is
okay,
a little
all
bit
right. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. Gotcha.
Yeah, and with those 2, so that's another piece of the game. So one of the things you're kind of thinking about is there's spaces that change the die itself. So there's the flip and the plus or minus 1 to the die itself. But dice D6s are limited. They can't be higher than 6. They can't be lower than 1, right? And I have it so that you can't add 1 to a 6 and flip it over. It doesn't work that way. So there's some natural limitations there. So that plus minus 1 is pretty powerful in the sense that it can get you, it can bring a 5 to a 6. It could bring a 2 down to a 1, which is a very powerful action, right? It expands the pool of what might possibly be able to parry. But again, you can't kind of like roll over those numbers, where there's other things which just affect the attack value or the defense value of your die, and those can go above a 6 or below a 1.
Interesting. Okay.
So those tend to be much more powerful because you're less, what the die face matters because that's what you're adding to, but it can potentially break out of the realm of the normal, kind of D6 value range. So those tend to be more powerful. I wish I was ready for that question. It's so long ago.
It's just fascinating to me.
Find it again, but yeah, I've done it with other Super Snipers. Was the same thing, this idea of like, with both games, especially with the character powers. I'm a big proponent of, if everything's broken, nothing is. Everything, everything you read, you're like, that's overpowered. But they're all overpowered.
Yeah, who cares? If everyone's overpowered.
It's like between the powers, the average is that using them puts you either solidly 1 move ahead of your opponent, is kind of the way I think about what the powers ultimately do, no matter what you phrase them at, no matter what they look like, or they can put you more than that, but it comes with a sacrifice, right? And so there's that's the kind of stuff I use for balancing, more or less. I know there's people out there that do really do the math, and mine's a little bit looser.
I listen, I love the push and pull and the nuts and bolts of game design and balance. I find it so fascinating because, especially when you're in a sea of games like a PAX or any other convention, where you're just surrounded by so many games, and you realize like, oh, these people are somehow not thinking of the exact same thing, which is just wild to me. That there's just people that like nobody could just come up with the exact same idea, and everyone could balance things completely differently. Some, it boggles the mind. In video games, our main show, DevDive, is all about indie developed video games, and we've had over 400 developers on the show talk about their story and how these games are made, and we get into a lot of the time, game balancing or just whatever. But a lot of that is on the screen. A lot of what you're seeing is actual numbers, right? You can actually assign values to pretty much everything and see it play out in real time.
Sure.
And you could almost have it give you all these permutations almost instantaneously in some cases, not all cases, obviously, but like, for example, a JRPG, right? Attacks, defense, magic, these are all systems that talk to each other in a cascading way, And if you change the numerical value on one of them, it's going to cascade and change the numbers, and you can kind of see it unfold. Whereas when you're making a card, you design this card, you print this card, and you play this card, and you're like, shit, that doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Okay, let's try making it one up or one down, or change this word, or change, it's like the trial and error in tabletop game design seems like a freaking nightmare to me.
It is the art of game design, though. Like, I can't stress that enough. There's not a person out there that's so smart that they can just design a game in their head and it just works. It's just not the way it works.
Yeah.
You have to put it on the table. That was fascinating to me. It's so different than, because I do think of it as an art, and I think it's a lot different than most other art forms in that sense, that like the truth is always on the table. There's always something you're going to find out. I mean, I've definitely, come closer to something fully formed and other things that, have gone are a million miles away from where they started, but you have to love that part of it, or you're not going to love game design. Like, it's the iteration, that hope is born anew, and then it's crushed, and that's born anew, and it's crushed, and you have these ideas that are just, I have the best idea that's ever been thought by any brain ever for a game, and then that's the feeling in the morning, and by the time you make it, before you're even done making it, you're like, no, this is trash. I
hate this. Why do I hate this?
Now
so
that I'm actually touching it, I'm thinking about doing the things I thought would be fun, and I'm realizing how quirky it is, or like, that is the art of game design, is the iteration, though. It's I'm not saying that's all there is to it, but it's the meat of it.
But eventually there is that moment where, well, one of two things could happen. Either it fucking finally works and you're just like, yay, it's doing what I want it to do. But then there's also that moment where you're witnessing it getting pulled apart and falling apart before your eyes in front of, with strangers playing it, or you bring in somebody to help you with something and they tell you, well, here's a list of all the things I want to change or things that don't work. And you just sit there and your soul begins to collapse in on itself. Like, how do you personally, I've asked this question before, how do you personally get through those kinds of hurdles, those personal attachment hurdles where you have this design, you love this design, you put it out, and it's not doing what you want. Yeah, it's not doing what you want it to do, and you're like poking it with the stick. Come on.
A little bit, it's a little bit. It's like just a muscle that you exercise. I think hopefully, here's the whole thing. There's the world of kind of like, when you get into the world of designers and you're bringing your stuff out there. I mean, it's one thing typically if you're bringing stuff to your family and friends, they won't tell you that it's terrible.
Right. So like, it was
you don't do that until you're in the later stages, and
right.
you want to see if they can understand it, because that's quickly, that's the problem with designers, is we have so much background knowledge. Even though we're playing a game for the first time, we're not really playing a game for the first time, because we're already mapping it with things we know, and everybody might think it's the bee's knees, and then you get in front of someone who actually buys it and they look at the robot like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So both are important, but in terms of that feedback piece, it was a learning process. It was definitely, I think, maybe there are exceptions. I think the people that still do it get through that first part of kind of like having their dreams crushed a little bit. I think the defensiveness, I see it all the time when people, Board Game Design Lab's probably my major place online where I mostly hang out, and that's a big one. You see a lot of new people come in and just kind of, and I love their excitement, and sometimes they're great ideas. I'm not saying they're not great ideas, but that ability to kind of like take the feedback and figure out, first get over the kind of like defensiveness piece of it,
right?
And it's tough. That said, I think there's ways to provide constructive feedback and normalize what the process is that makes it easier for people. A simple one I do all the time, it kind of, so my day job, I'm a psychotherapist, and it kind of took this from that. I will quite often, I'll rarely start a sentence with I think. This is what I think about it. I'll almost never, in a therapy office, almost never say that. I'll almost never say that also, when working with a game designer. What I'll say, because you just say, I wonder what it would be like if, we skip the draft, or whatever. You because then you're inviting them to wonder too, as opposed to the draft.
It's that trick of making them feel like it was their idea.
Yeah, a little bit,
a little bit of that, yeah.
But there is that invitation because you can help people get past their own defensiveness, and some people are great at it. Some people can, and honestly, some there's designers out there that are great and they're helpful, and you want them to test your game, but they're not. The bedside manner is not.
They're not good
best,
communicators.
right? Like
yeah.
there's that kind of like, I'm the truth teller. I'm going to break your game. I'm going to tell you what's wrong. And like, it's helpful. Some of you guys could do better.
And after you pick yourself off the ground, then dust yourself off and move on to the next thing. So let's talk a little bit about Monster Mashup, because this is the one that originally caught my eye. The colors, the design, it's just it slaps you in the face with like, look at me, look how cool this is. This reminds me of like taking apart my GI Joes and like putting different legs on different guys and like snapping, all that stuff. I don't know what it is, but there's a resurgence with this. I don't know if you've seen this, but like all the new Ninja Turtle line have the snap and mix, like turtles and monsters, like they're all doing it.
Nice.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like X-Men, I think had something similar to that recently, or Marvel in general. I don't know if it was X-Men or Marvel, but like they come with a piece of a monster and you can like switch them with different anyway. Monster Mashup, really dope. I don't know what's going on. I didn't get to play it, but tell me a little bit about Monster Mashup, because it does look dope.
Sure. So this is a game designed by Chris Bocchi. The art that you love is by John DeCampos, who himself is a game designer and publisher with Terrible Games. He does, maybe you've seen some of the games, Black Mold or Token Terrors, or
I think so. Yeah,
he's just got that art style that is so killer. He was the obvious choice for it. So in the game, you're playing as mad scientists, and you're smashing together creatures and bringing them to the arena and battling them to the death. Right? Like you
sure.
don't need to justify. That's just what we do. Right? Like, and so mechanically, one of the cool things that's happening in the game is that there's these little mini cards, and it's got there's 24 of them, and they'll have the monster's front on one side and the back on the other, right? So it's a griffin, right? Like it's front of the griffin, back of the griffin, and you're taking any front with any back, and you're doing that classic kind of smash together. So visually, John did an amazing job with it, because a mini card and making two of them together and making, no matter what you put together, and make it look like it's something that was because that's a tight little space.
Matching those lines up perfectly.
Oh, man. He really,
so cool.
That was a challenge, which was cool. But, gameplay wise, right. So you smash them together and it creates and you get the name for the creature. And often that's hilarious. Some of the names I really did not see coming. Example, there's a Kraken and a Manicore, and you can put them together and make a crack core, which is kind of fun.
we have from your website, we have the like gameplay videos here that you have on your website. We have the Terracroc and the Caveling on the screen. So yeah, I could definitely see where some of this can get a little silly.
It does. And so it creates a name, it creates their stats. So the stats on the front are your health and your intelligence, which is like the amount of energy you regain, which it does all sorts of things. And the other side is the special attack and the speed. So the speed's the tiebreaker. And not only that, but there's these little like kind of computer screen. The view is kind of like when you put it together, you're looking through your console, and it creates this unique if-then power. So the heads have the if and the backs have the then. And so if the first part is ever true, then you can activate this power this round. So for example, if you roll doubles, then steal one energy from your opponent, right? So as you're building, you're kind of like thinking about what's going to be the best matchup there. And so so that part of the game, that's kind of the core of the game. But what's kind of neat about it, so then you're rolling d6s, you're using the powers on them, using your powers on your mad scientist, you're spending energy to do rerolls, and you're obviously you're trying to get the higher amount. But what's cool is once both players pass, once you're sticking with your dice, there's this kind of rock paper scissors thing. So you're going to do, it's called the boost phase, 1 2 3, and you're doing one of three things. You're either going to show a number 0 through 5, and you're going to spend that much energy if you have it to increase your attack, and you're gonna increase your overall attack by that. Or you can defend, which you put out a fist and you're going to defend, and what that's going to do is it's going to cut your damage in half. You lose, but you're getting energy back equal to your intelligence. But then the cool thing, you can also panic button. You hit the table, and both players have to re-roll. But if I panic button and you defend I lose automatically. The battle is over.
Yeah.
So there's this neat little head game of kind of like, are you going to try to catch me on that panic button, or am I going to BS you? You're going to defend. I'm going to do 0. I still win, even though I was way below.
Like a standoff.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
And simple little game, a lot of fun. A lot of development work went into that one.
I can see that as a TCG. Like,
yeah,
like just scale it up a little bit and just get random halves of monsters. Like, I could totally see that, the permutations going on forever. Like, I know that's not, the core game, but I could see something like that really taking off. That would be a lot of fun. Getting a random mad scientist, like each pack comes with one mad scientist and then a bunch of like monster halves, kind of
right.
thing, That'd be awesome.
Well, we are gonna actually, for the next Kickstarter, I'm gonna have, for some of the games, there's gonna be expansion content, and that's cool. Definitely one of them. So I won't say a lot about what it is, but more creatures, definitely more mad scientists. Yeah. Oh, and it also has the thing we were talking about with if your creature is killed, your mad scientist flips over, they get enraged, and they have a better power the next time around.
So. Yep, card flipping is, like you said, gotta make use of every inch of those cards. I get it. I understand. Yeah, I'm surprised you don't have like a decoder thing, or like one of those like little things you look through and like there's a different message on the cards just to really
my management staff.
Yeah. So the final game that we haven't talked about was Verdant, Arizona, correct? That was what
yeah. I think I did kind of cover Heritage Farms too. So yeah, we can talk about Verdant. Verdant, Arizona is a game by Robin David. He's an Irish designer. I think he's living in Germany currently. He's done a couple other things. I think Letterpress is the one he's most well known for. Really nice guy. And in the game, we're competitive cacti collectors, which it doesn't sound exciting, but this is on probably the best game, to be honest. Just like pure game wise, this
okay.
Might be
all right.
A lot of people love this one. It's not so in it you've got like if you can imagine, there's this 3x3 tableau, and you've got these little square cacti cards out there, and they'll each have a number and a color in the corner, and they might have a wren's nest on it, in which case you add like a little wren token. So this 3x3 grid, it's like if you can imagine, it's like a city grid, because you have this little meeple truck that's going to move around in there. Right? On your turn, you're moving this 2 spaces, so you're going around corners, or you're turning it around, and wherever you land, you're taking one of those cards, and they're being replaced face down. And as you're taking the cards, you're building a personal tableau, and this is like nothing revolutionary here, right? The personal tableau, you're trying to get rows and columns in ascending or descending order, and you're trying to make the 4 card corners of the same color to maximize your score. That part is all pretty straightforward. What's really the kind of the meat and what's nasty about the game, which surprises people, is that actually the selection mechanism, because wherever I end my turn is where I start yours. So I can't, it's like Patchwork. I don't know if you're a big Patchwork fan or not, but it's a Uwe Rosenberg polyomino game. But that game, you think you're playing it well as you're getting your pieces and you're building your puzzle. When you're really playing it well is when you're paying attention to what your opponent's doing and making sure you're leaving the selection marker somewhere that doesn't help them at all. That's when you're really playing. And it's true about this game too. Like you're really paying attention to what they're doing. There's also this neat thing that because the cards are placed face down, if at the start of your turn you can't reach a face-up card in 2 turns, they all flip up, and that gives you a huge advantage. All of a sudden you have a big selection, So if you can time that so that happens on your turn and not your opponent's, that becomes a big deal too. So it's a neat, thinky one. It's got a really good solo mode. Yeah, the games, I kind of, for the Kickstarter, I did, the strategy bundle with Heritage and Verdant, and then the battle bundle with Dice Clash and Mint Tin Monster Mashup. And it definitely, it appeals to a wide group. There are some people that, purely on seeing the cacti were just like, I'm into this. I don't think I care about any of these other games.
That is a sentence I never thought I'd hear. I never in a million years did I think somebody would say, "Oh, cacti, I'm in."
Yeah, or Arizona.
Unless they're a tortoise.
Yeah. That one was neat too. The other thing that's kind of unique about that, and it was pitched this way to me too. So for all the games, I got art done. That one actually, when it was pitched to me, Robin had taken the pictures that he used all from these old botany books, like these old public domain botany books with these beautiful illustrations. And I was like, I'm not going to get anything better than this. And they're public domain, they're free. Like, you know, you know, I obviously used a graphic designer to kind of, you know, brighten them up and, you know, make the borders and make sure all the icons are good and all that stuff. But it really is a big, it's people really get into that too.
That's pretty. That's incredible. All right. Well, that's the Mint Tin series. Where can people purchase this or get ahead of the game? Because I know this is coming out in the summer. I believe it's when shipments will start going out and all that stuff. But people can still jump on board and try and get in there, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So it is. I'm assuming you can do links in the show notes or whatever.
Yeah, but everything will be in the show notes.
It is. It is in late pledge right now, so it's got a backer kit late pledge. You can look it up on Kickstarter, and the link will take you right there. But yeah, they're all available and looking to deliver this summer. Everything's on track to do that. Also, print and play available if anybody does that. Mint tins are particularly easy to do as print and plays. No exceptions. So. And you can get all 4 of them for $10. So that's your thing.
I don't know. I might do this to satiate my appetite.
Yeah, those will be the print play should be released either next month or March at the latest. That should be all done. That's getting put together.
So. I like the hell out of that.
Yeah.
You know what else I like?
What's that?
I like sniping people's heads off their shoulders. Let's talk about Super Snipers, because I've seen people play it. Again, this is another game that I didn't get my hands on, you know, while it was there. But this game looks super fascinating, and it's not a tin. It's not one of them little ones. This one you're gonna have to have a little real estate on your shelf. It looks like we're getting a box here. This is excellent for our audio. There it is, beautiful. Look at that. If you're buying a pack of mints that big, you need to see a dental hygienist is where you're at. Tell us about this game. What are we doing here?
Sure. So Super Snipers is a 1 to 2 player dueling sniper game. Tetris to the death is the absolute quickest way I can describe it to you. So it's a head-to-head game. You look a little frozen there, Steve. We still going?
Yeah.
Okay.
I lost myself for a second. Apologize. I captured the wrong window.
Yeah,
that was my fault.
So head-to-head sniper game. And basically what's happening is the setting is, 2484, 80% of Earth's surface has been rendered uninhabitable, and everybody's kind of fighting over remaining resources. Really cheery kind of post-apocalyptic vision.
Sure.
And so you're taking on the role of a super sniper, which are these genetically and cybernetically enhanced super soldiers, relics of the last great war, who are now working as kind of, mercenaries for hire and taking each other out. So kind of the setting is, you're trying to take out your old friend there from across, and you have to, because you're a super sniper, it's going to take 3 shots before you go down. So it's the first to 3 kills is how the game's set up. It's I will say with the characters too, the art in the game I'm very proud of. There's a lot of very cool characters. The same guy who did Ice Clash did the art for Super Snipers, Was Yang. I kind of really was going for almost like a Street Fighter-esque kind of 90s arcade feel to the game and to the art style for it, because that's a big inspiration for me in terms of the kind of stuff I love. So yeah, in the game, there's a hiding phase, which you're basically, in front of you, you have these 5 by 5 grids in front of you that represent the locations that you're looking through your scope where your opponent might be. And so your opponent takes these hiding discs. They all have a sigil on one side and the other. They either say miss or they show them, and they're choosing where they're hiding. And then you go to the locate phase where you're playing your polyominoes. And so it uses polyominoes or Tetris pieces. I use the classic 5 shapes. I was corrected on that one time, which cracked me up. I'd said, the classic 5 shapes, and somebody said, no, there's 6, because there's the left facing L and the right facing L.
They're the same thing.
Yeah, right,
I get it. Yeah, no. Listen, Tetris snobs, and one of my best friends since college, he made his own puzzle game. It's called Super Anthony's Joltsy. You should look it up on Steam. Phenomenal game. But he's like, he dropped the word Tetramino on me once, and I was like, what was that word? He's like, oh, that's what they're called. I'm like, What do you mean that's what they're called? Anyway, so yeah, I know all about the Tetramino snobs out there.
Just four squares arranged in some way, right? And that's the Tetranima, Tetramino, whatever you want to say. Yeah. So so you got those shapes, and it's kind of neat. So the way, I don't know, be able to show it here, but
we do have some gameplay courtesy
cool.
of the Hungry Gamer.
So you got this, what's called like a line of sight. Everything, is obviously supposed to be thematic. And it kind of works like a conveyor belt, similar to if you played any modern Tetris. You see the pieces that are coming up, and you're taking them and you're playing them to the grid. And the goal is to kind of surround the central crosshairs, at which point you get to flip and determine if you found them or not. So some people have kind of said it's a little bit like Battleship in that sense, right?
Yeah,
like,
sure. Yeah, I could see that.
Tetris. And so when you locate them, you take the grid that corresponds with that. So now you go to an 8x8 bigger one. You pop in the scope board, which is kind of the killer piece of this whole thing. It's dual layered. It's really nice. You can slot these maps in and out. They're all, again, double-sided maps. All these are double-sided, so you have a bunch of different options. And this becomes your puzzle you're trying to solve. And what's cool about this is there's innocent bystanders and there's your target. And you have to use your pieces to isolate the innocent bystanders and frame the target in such a way that your little special 3-piece bullet can fit over them. And the first person to do that makes the kill. It's the high level view of it. There's more to it. There's spaces you cover that give you different abilities that let you break certain rules in the game. And then each character has an asymmetric power. And I talked about it earlier, the round after your shot, you have access to yet another power that kind of helps you beef up a little bit. So yeah, there's you can play the game with simultaneous turns where, you and I are each taking our first piece, we're placing, I wait for you to finish, you wait for me to finish, we do the next one. Or you can play a real-time version where there's 10-second sand timers. It's my favorite way to play it, not for everybody, but you start your turn by flipping the timer, you play your piece, and once you played your piece and your timer's up, you can flip your timer and start your next turn right away. So you can think about it if you want. You can take longer and try to do the optimal play, but I might start getting a couple turns ahead of you if I'm going fast, which may or may not be the thing that wins the game. But the primary emotion I went for with that game is pressure, and it comes through no matter what. But with the timers, you're like,
yeah, I'm puckered already, and that's getting the blood going.
So yeah, that was my first self-publishing one. That one was I'm very proud of it. I love that game. I recently got some pretty good press too. I made a couple top 10 lists. Tom Vassila named it the number 7 game that did something different in 2024, and that was a big deal. Saw a bit of sales boost after that.
Awesome, congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I added it as an add-on to the whole package, the whole shebang. So I'll be getting a nice big box in the mail at some point. Cool. All right, very cool. Is there anything else you kind of want to hit on before we slide into our rapid fire section where I just kind of ask you a bunch of really silly questions? So anything more Galen's games, excuse me, that you want to kind of let out there?
Trying to think about that. No, we kind of covered what's out there. I'm planning on 2025 coming in with some more Mint 10 games. I think I'm going to keep doing the Mint 10 things. There's some future for Super Snipers as well. I'm getting pretty close to a reprint of that, and I have a couple ideas of what to do with that as well. So
awesome.
Always encourage people to follow along, and there's lots of places to do that or come say hello at the conventions. That for me is like one of the most fulfilling things, is just having, kind of people stop by, either, newly interested or, I love your game, that kind of stuff. It's just great. It's
awesome. Well, congrats on almost having to do your next run of
thank you.
That's awesome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Galen, it is now time for me to get to know you a little bit better, where I'm going to give you some rapid fire, and you just give me some off the cuff answers. That's all. We're just gonna get to know you a little bit better. We'll see what's going on in the old noggin of yours. As an industry professional as you are in your day job, I'm sure this is not going to be too revealing. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Sure.
Do you believe in aliens?
Yeah, I'm quite sure they're out there somewhere.
Do you eat or drink soup?
Combination.
Same question, milkshake.
I drink a milkshake, yeah.
Yeah, you drink a milkshake. sometimes they give you the spoon, like the Dairy Queen Blizzard, they turn it upside down.
Yeah.
It's ice cream. This isn't a shake. This is ice
Both
cream.
my daughters definitely eat the milkshake. I
Sure.
drink them.
So we know who shot the sheriff, but who shot the deputy?
Oh man, they neither Bob nor Eric Clapton ever revealed that, as far as I know. It's a mystery.
Do you have a theory?
Shot that.
I shot the sheriff, but I didn't shoot the deputy. So some people say that he is the deputy.
Oh, I've never heard that.
That's what I've heard. I've heard some people say, well, that's because he is the deputy. So now he's the sheriff. But I don't know. That's
interesting. Just in general, it's funny. I've definitely, some songs really thought about the lyrics and the meaning, and there's others like that one I've probably heard a million times. I've never given it a set. Never dove in. I like it.
It's that one is always up there with I'll do anything for love, but I won't do that.
Yeah, right.
Like those two are like these existential crisis questions where I'm just like, what won't you do, man? Anyway, what is the most important skill to have as a teenager in a slasher film? Is it speed or stealth?
I'm gonna go with speed.
Getting away?
Speed and the ability to not trip. Don't run and look behind you at the same time.
And never do that. Never do that. Just keep your eyes in front. Just don't stop for any reason. He's never not behind you. Just run until until you have people with guns in front of you.
Absolutely. I love it. Yep.
I'm good.
Philosophy.
Let's see. What you look like you might have fallen for some stupid trends in high school. What was that? What was the dumbest one you fell for?
Dumbest trend I fell for. That's immediately I think of kind of my senior year photo and the skater cut, like, with everything shaved on the side and everything really long. But I've got, the kind of like when I grow it out, the super wavy hair and like,
wow,
it's a bad senior photo. Yep.
Wow. Did you have that one friend that would be like, let me straighten it, and then like straighten it and it gets really like weird looking, like almost like a bob on one side of your head?
I never had anybody help me with my hair. I just struggled alone with it. I really went for the long hair for a
that's long that's the perils of being a theater kid, is that you're surrounded by people who want to do your hair and makeup 24 hours a day. I used to have, I also had curly hair, but I had it like past my shoulders, and I can't tell you how many times the girls would be, oh, and they straighten my hair and it just look like I look like an American Girl doll. It's the weirdest sensation. Let's see. Let's do a couple more and then we'll get you out of here.
Sure.
Who is your current celebrity crush?
Current celebrity crush. Yeah, Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, it's a good answer. That's a good answer. You can't go wrong with that answer. Honestly, you just can't. I get it. This question is, I don't know what I was doing. I don't partake in the devil's lettuce, and I barely drink, but the questions on here are sometimes I question what I was thinking. Okay. The question is, you ever just look at a baby and go, I could absolutely destroy them in a foot race?
No.
Okay. I don't know where that question came from. All right, final question here. I actually like this one. How late is too late to cancel a plan with someone?
How late is, oh man. How late is too late to cancel a plan with somebody? I would say like almost every situation in 24 hours. There's extenuating circumstances, but that's something I get so much anxiety over that stuff. I'm not late to anything, I don't want to disappoint people.
If there's even a possibility that something could go wrong, I let the person know. Like, hey, in 4 days from now, I don't know. There's just something going on. There's just something going on. Trains and whatnot. Just how it is. Okay, now the real final question. This is we ask all of our guests this question. if you could make a Mint 10 game of any IP in the whole world, what IP would you choose?
Mint 10 game of any IP. I haven't given this much thought, so I don't know. There's a couple that are way up there. I think I'll just go with off the top of my head. Mad Max. That's what
Okay. Yeah, it's, Super Snipers kind of
I know
fits in that
Jason
theme.
Glover has, Dust Runners or whatever that kind of does it, but I think there's other things.
I could see like a monster mashup, but like vehicles.
Yeah,
that could kind of work with the Mad Max, and like you have like a track that you move everything on, and I could see that working. That'd be pretty cool. I'd buy it. That's
a pretty badass idea, maybe
2025.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Like it.
Nice.
All right, quickly, the thing you said in the beginning when you looked at all 4 games and you wondered what is this crazy thing, when I was leading up, I was building up my email list and leading up to the launch of the campaign, I was asking people, kind of like, anything, kind of surveys, make sure I'm doing, what people want, but also there's the opening for suggestions. And one person had suggested that she wanted, me to design a mode that used all the parts from all the games for one giant mega game. And I'm like, that's such an amazing idea. Do I not have time to do
it? Staring at that would be, I would have an ADHD a conniption. Like I would just shut down. I think looking at that as trying to figure that out. You could feed the monsters, the cactus.
I was there too. Yep.
And I'm good. I'm good.
Transport them across the river to
transport
battle.
them. Yeah, transport them. Yeah.
And I don't know.
Yeah. I don't. Yikes. Okay. Yeah. No, that's awesome. All right. This has been dope. I'm very, very happy I was able to get you on here. This is great. Galen, is there anything else you want to plug before we go? And before we do, again, ladies and gentlemen, all the links are going to be in the show description. If you want to follow Indie Rift, we're at Indie Rift pretty much everywhere. All social medias. Looks at me. I'm at Batchild pretty much everywhere as well. And if you want to support us on Patreon, you go to patreon.com/IndieRift, just like our Patreon producer, Colton, the journeyman Nestler. Thank you, Colton, for all of your support over the 7+ years that you've been helping us grow just each and every month. It's awesome. So yeah, anything else you want to hit the folks with?
Not even me necessarily, though. I'll be there. I'll just quickly plug, I'm in Syracuse, New York, and we have an amazing small local convention called QSCon that happens either at the end of September or the beginning of October every year. If you're in the area, you feel like making the trip, it's just the best. It's just really great. It's small, it's very gaming focused, and it's a lot of fun. So not everybody's heard of it, but it keeps getting bigger every year.
QSCon. I like that. That's
Michael Gugliano of 3WS Studios is the guy who runs it. He's local here as well. So yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, that's going to do it for us folks here at DevDive Side Table. I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned something new, and I hope you got excited for some new games coming out this summer from Galen's Games. Galen, thank you so much. Viewers, thank you. Listeners, thank you. And as always, please be excellent to each other.